So today we're going to talk about one of my favorite conversation questions, but it's kind of a two-parter. We're not really going to start with the conversation question you saw at the beginning of this video. We're going to kind of build into that question because I want you to understand why this is so important to me and also why this is something that you may want to ask somebody. But I also want to give you a little cultural understanding about the US and also just about being open-minded towards people of different backgrounds and different experiences. So like I said at the beginning, we are approaching the holiday season here in the United States. In just 2 weeks, we have Thanksgiving, which is actually my favorite holiday, which is why I want to talk about this topic. And then we're going to have Christmas and Hanukkah and Kwanzaa. And I know there's a couple of New Year celebrations going on. And I know these are really important in different levels for people from different backgrounds. So you guys can be sure to be thinking as we go through, what are the holidays that you enjoy celebrating? So I thought it would be a little too easy to start with the question, what's your favorite holiday? Although that is going to be part of this conversation. But first I want to go a little simpler. Let's talk about what we mean by holiday, because holidays are really things that they can be official holidays. Like here in the United States, we have holidays like President's Day and Memorial Day, Veterans Day. These are official state holidays where we celebrate. In Veterans Day and Memorial Day, we celebrate the veterans who have served in the military. And on President's Day, we celebrate the presidents who have helped build our country. But we also have holidays like Thanksgiving, which isn't a religious holiday. It's kind of a harvest celebration. It comes from the harvest season. It's fall in the United States right now. It's the end of the growing season. So Thanksgiving originally started as a harvest celebration, and now it's a cultural holiday, which means there's no religious tone. Sometimes people add religious tone, sometimes people don't. It really depends on your family background, your religious background, but it's a cultural holiday. And that's one of the reasons I love it so much, is it's part of American culture. Canadians also have Thanksgiving. It's in October, and their traditions may be a little different. To be perfectly honest, I'm not that familiar with Canadian Thanksgiving, except that I know that it exists as well. So, and I don't know if it's Thanksgiving's in other cultures, but I know harvest celebrations are in other cultures. So that's a cultural holiday. Even holidays like Christmas, which is a religious holiday for many people, is actually more of a cultural holiday for many people in the United States. It's kind of got its own cultural traditions in addition to or apart from the religious traditions. You'll see people who are Jewish who also have a Christmas tree. They're still celebrating the festive holiday season. So that's just something to keep in mind if you go to the US and you have a friend who's Jewish and you say, hey, why do you have a Christmas tree? It's because it's a cultural holiday. A lot of people celebrate several different traditions. And then, of course, we have the New Year, which is important in the United States, but I know from my Russian friends, New Year is even bigger than Christmas in Russia. And I know New Year is really big in a lot of Asian countries. So I want you to think about your favorite holidays. There may be other holidays I haven't thought of, like a lot of countries celebrate Independence Day, our July 4th weekend. So these are holidays that we celebrate the traditions of our country. When I lived in Chile, they celebrated certain naval holidays. There were some naval celebrations. They also naval, like the Navy, the seafaring military, and then also they also celebrated their own Independence Day. So it was really cool living in Chile for me to see these traditions and see how different they are than other countries. And that's why I wanted to talk about this today. Holidays are really all over the place. There's all kinds of different holidays and ways to celebrate. And so that's why in today's lesson, I want to talk about your favorite holiday, but I want to talk about what holiday traditions truly matter to you. Because if I just ask you, what's your favorite holiday? And you say, Halloween, and it's like, okay, well, why, right? And so you may not be able to get more information about the other. Well, it depends on the person's answer. With the question why, the person may give you more information and you may learn about the reason why. But I think the thing that usually really helps us connect when we're talking about holidays is talking about the traditions. And by traditions, I mean the things that you do year after year. This could be things that you eat, right? Food is really a big part of celebrations. cultural dances, the type of music people listen to, the lighting, candles, and certain types of lights are a big part of cultural traditions. The clothing that people wear is sometimes part, not every holiday, but often part. What people do, like I said, the activities that they do on these days, the mental state of mind, what they think about on these particular holidays. And I'll give some examples as we go through this lesson. So I want you to kind of start thinking about, what are the holiday traditions that you truly enjoy, that truly matter to you from your home country, your home culture, or your religion? And since we're going to be talking about holiday traditions, you're more than welcome to share religious traditions. But I just want to remind you, I don't think this will be a problem, but this is a safe community for everybody. All traditions are welcome. All religions are welcome. All backgrounds are welcome. No holiday is better than another. It's just what's better for you, right? What's the tradition you really celebrate? So I want to be able to use holiday traditions as a way to exchange information, as a way to connect with the other person, as a way to compare and contrast and see how these different holiday traditions make us all human, kind of celebrating in the same ways. That's what I've really loved about holiday traditions. And hopefully, if we have a good amount of people participating in the live chat, we'll get people from a wide variety of backgrounds. So we'll hear about a number of different traditions. We'll hear about what people have experienced living in their home country and living in other countries. For example, when I lived in Chile, we actually brought Thanksgiving to our friends in Chile. We had a kind of not exactly typical Thanksgiving dinner, but all of the Americans got together and had a Thanksgiving celebration, and we invited our Chilean friends so that they could participate in these traditions with us. I think it's so wonderful when we can welcome other people into our traditions. I could name a number of different traditions I've had the opportunity to participate in. And sometimes you can feel kind of like an outsider. I've definitely gone to cultural celebrations in small communities in Mexico and also in Peru, where I didn't really understand what the dances meant. Actually, I studied my master's degree is in Latin American studies. So I have some understanding of some of the traditions. Like I know what's going on kind of at a high level, but in terms of specifically why this day or this dance or this type of clothing is important, I really would love to hear from other people about that. So it is an opportunity if you're celebrating a holiday with someone to learn about why it's important to them. And a lot of times our traditions have to do with connecting our ancestors, our past, with our present, with connecting ourselves with what is so important in today's life and how to bring these things together. And I guess a good word for this that I wanted to teach you guys is the word reverence. The word reverence is kind of when you honor the spirit of life, right? The spirit of the universe, whatever deity you may believe in. And you also honor kind of the past, the traditions of the past, and you kind of have respect for that. That's what reverence is. It's kind of like standing with respect for that which has come before us. And so holiday traditions are a really fun time to kind of reconnect with everything, with these years and years of traditions, the years you've celebrated with your friends and with your family. And I think it's a really cool opportunity for us to share some stories about our traditions as well. So I'm going to take a moment and check in with you guys in the live chat, and then we'll start talking a little more. I'll share more of my stories about traditions that are important to you, important to me, and then hopefully we'll get a conversation going. But I'm excited to talk about this because traditions are so essential for connecting us with history, connecting us with our personal histories, our family histories, with our cultural histories, with even our political histories of our countries. So it can be positive and negative, but there's a good amount of understanding more about our own cultures that helps us understand more about other people's cultures. Because I personally believe we're all human, we're all the same, and we should stop fighting about things. I believe that we should all try to understand what we have in common. So hopefully this conversation allows all of us in this community to share those things as well. Okay, so let's see yes, Bianca Maria, don't worry. I will talk about Thanksgiving, of course, because that's the holiday tradition that truly matters to me. Trang says, my favorite holiday is the Tet holiday, a Vietnamese traditional holiday. Very cool. The costume we wear traditionally is I'm pronouncing it like it's Portuguese. I don't know how to pronounce it. Audai? Nice to see you again. Horacio, his favorite holiday is Christmas because besides the religious background, I find it a special day to get together with family and have a good, unique time. Exactly. Yeah, so like I said, like Christmas in the United States isn't always about the religious tradition. It's about the family traditions because I actually really love Christmas music. Even if it's religious, like even if it's something that I don't necessarily believe, because I think it's all really important to kind of connect with people in that way, and the music has a lot of power. You're under pressure to prepare for your speaking contest. Whoa, good for you. Anna, I love this holiday season, starting with Thanksgiving, because we can give thanks for everything we've gotten. Yeah, we've gotten this past year. And Anna, I believe you're living in the US, right? So you are going to celebrate Thanksgiving. Woohoo! That's a woohoo high five. You can't really see it. I'm going to give you the thumbs up. Reverence. Yes, thank you. That's the word that we're looking for today. Patty says, my favorite holiday tradition is Christmas. I love all of the lights and candles in the Christmas spirit with family and friends. Exactly, right? The lights and the candles in the Christmas spirit. And so I'm going to distinguish what we mean by holiday tradition. But yeah, all of these, the lights and candles are holiday traditions involved in Christmas. So there's a lot of them. And yes, the Christmas spirit, it's the feeling you get around that time of year. And Aimano says, my favorite holiday is Eid. Okay, cool. And I'm going to ask you more about that in just a second. Patty says, we don't celebrate Thanksgiving here in France, but you would like to. Yeah, because Thanksgiving is, Thanksgiving has its roots in a bunch of different cultures because of the immigrants to the U.S. But yeah, it's kind of like you can kind of bring those traditions that you like to other cultures. And Anna says, for Christmas, I love the spirit of faith that most of the people show. Exactly. That's the thing I like about holidays, whether, I'm not Muslim, but I appreciate a lot of the Muslim holidays because they're about reflecting, they're about thinking about people, they're about thinking about your family. So I can really appreciate those traditions even though I don't practice that religion. The same thing with the Jewish religions. There was recently a holiday where it's 10 days of reflecting, and you reflect on this past year, on the losses, on the good things. So reflecting is a really good tradition that's part of a lot of these holidays. And Bianca Maria talks about in Milano, we celebrate our patron, Sant'Ambrogio. I don't know if I said that right. Sorry. On the 7th of December. Oh, yes. There's a couple of holidays around the 6th and the 7th of December in different cultures where that's really important. And that's important to note, is that your favorite holiday may not be the biggest holiday in your entire country. That's the most important holiday. It's what's important to you and your family traditions. And Arildo says, please talk about the real meaning of Thanksgiving. What about the foods tradition? I'm an evangelical Christian and I know just a little bit about it. And that's also a good point. Here in the United States, there's a lot of different religions, and there are some religions where you don't celebrate holidays because I can't really explain why, because it's not something that I believe. But so a lot of times people are like, oh, what's that like? Like, how do you celebrate that? Because even if you don't celebrate the holiday, or you don't believe in holidays, or whatever the story is, it's still important to understand why it matters to other people. And you guys probably know by now, I'm all about understanding other people, not deciding which way is better, right? It's all about understanding. So yeah, it's good to be curious about other people's cultural traditions and holiday traditions, even if you're not celebrating, because it's good to be able to show interest in other people and what matters to them. And that brings me back to the question, which holiday tradition truly matters to you? And when we say the word, well, I'm going to save that for just a moment after I've looked at the chat, but matters, pay attention to this word matters as I go through the description, because I really want you to understand what's happening there. Okay, Zayla, I just saw your chat pop up. Hit refresh, although I don't know if you can hit refresh, but you want to, hit refresh on your computer. A lot of times, sometimes the video doesn't go through when it's a live video, even it doesn't matter how good your internet is. So just hit refresh and hopefully that'll make you join. Okay, so Julia, the question is, which holiday tradition is wait, which holiday tradition truly matters to you? And we're starting with the question, what's your favorite holiday? Kind of thinking about why so that we can talk about which tradition truly matters to you. And Horacio says, creating connections. I agree with the idea of finding things that approach us as people rather than looking for excuses to fight against each other. It's so true. And I know you guys are open-minded, because if you learn another language, you're usually quite open-minded. But you find when you travel, you start realizing how similar people are. You may see cultures that are very different than the one that you grew up in. But if you're open-minded and you're reflective, you start realizing we're all the same. It's just sometimes things look a little different, right? We look a little different, clothes look a little different, but we're all human. We're part of the human family. Okay, good, Zayla. I'm glad it came out. And yes, Anna, cool. South Texas. I have only been to the very northern part of Texas when I was driving across the country. Giselle, here in Brazil, we don't celebrate Halloween, but nowadays the schools started celebrating with children and playing, asking for candy. Yes, when I was living in both Peru and Chile, I've lived in a few countries, they started celebrating Halloween, but it's funny because it's like their own version of Halloween, because in Peru they would say Halloween and we say trick or treat when you want to get your candy. So it's kind of funny when like the traditions kind of get like, you get the costume and the candy, but like you miss the word trick or treat. So I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, but it's funny because it's like, it's great. I don't know, Halloween, I actually love Halloween. Halloween has kind of a religious or a spiritual tradition as well. But I love Halloween because kids are so happy wearing costumes. Like, I love seeing kids dress up. I'm like, oh, like right now just thinking about it. So thanks for that comment. Valdemir, oh, nice to see you again. In your state, we celebrate Black Awareness Day the next November 20th. In Sao Paulo, Brazil, you're celebrating your birthday today. Woohoo! Somebody hit the party emoji on the in the chat box. That's so interesting. Yeah, and here in the United States, we also have a lot of African Americans and Black traditions, and one of them at the end of the year is Kwanzaa. I don't know that much about Kwanzaa, to be perfectly honest, because I've never had the opportunity to celebrate with someone and learn, but it's also really important, like awareness days. There's like Asian awareness days in the United States, like Hispanic Heritage Month. There's a lot of different celebrations. And for me, I think they're really important. I think we should celebrate people's backgrounds and like understand more about how these traditions make us who they are. So I'm going to talk more about that. This is one of my favorite topics. I keep repeating that. So you guys, it might get longer. It's okay if you have to duck out, but it's just a good thing to come back to and think about. And again, just a reminder, these are my opinions, my perspectives, and I'm not an expert necessarily. I mean, I am just speaking from my lived experience. I'm an expert on my own experience, but I love talking about it. So it's a conversation. And that's something to keep in mind when you get into these type of conversation topics. We're all just having a conversation. So it's kind of like there's no right or wrong, right? It's just the ability to learn. That's what I love about talking with people. Even though, it's funny because you guys probably think I'm really extroverted, which means I really love being around people, but I'm actually introverted, but I love connecting with other people. So I love learning about people. I love learning about experiences. I love analyzing things. And so it's fun. That's what we're doing here, my friends. Okay, good. So Zayla made it here. Yes, matters. Horacio, thank you for being my assistant. We luckily don't have any kind of awkward conversations that often here. People don't comment weird things in the chat, but there's like, you can give moderation, like let somebody be a moderator of the chat. And so Horacio, you would be the moderator. Okay, so Vanya says, hello from Brazil, cool. And Aimano says, I love seeing kids happy. Exactly, and actually that's one of the reasons I love a lot of these traditions. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about Thanksgiving because Thanksgiving's my favorite holiday and I know it's upcoming. So I just want you guys to understand, I actually didn't prepare what I was gonna say about Thanksgiving, so this is very heartfelt. It's coming from my heart, from my lived experience, and there's probably the opportunity to do a little research if you want to to know more about Thanksgiving. In fact, I have some links that I can include probably below the video. So after the live broadcast, I'll look for those links because I used to teach this in my English classes. But before I get crazy talking about Thanksgiving, let's give some thanks for my North Carolina mug. And actually, North Carolina is where my brother and sister-in-law live. So this was my Christmas present last year. And so they're coming for Thanksgiving. They're coming up to the Boston area to have Thanksgiving in 2 weeks. So, but I need to pause and breathe and have a sip of my tea. But as I go through talking about Thanksgiving, I want to encourage you to ask questions because I may forget things because this is part of my lived cultural tradition. And actually, that's something to keep in mind is that sometimes something that's so obvious and so much part of you is actually something that other people may not understand. And that's why I like these type of simple questions that are actually quite complex when you start analyzing them. Okay, so like I keep saying, here in the United States, we are moving, it's November, and 2 weeks from today, we have Thanksgiving. And so Thanksgiving in the past traditionally started as basically a harvest celebration. And what we mean by harvest is when after the growing season of all the fruits and vegetables and all of the plants in the summer, the spring and summer, in the fall, here especially, because this Thanksgiving tradition started in New England, which is where I currently am located and where I was originally from. So New England is where the traditions started because that was where the first kind of immigrants to the United States, the colonists who came to the United States, settled in a part of that's what's now Massachusetts. And they were actually supported by the Native American Indians. We say Native Americans now, but just so you understand, if you ever read it, there's the old outdated terms. But the Native Americans the tribes that already lived here, that were the original citizens, what we call First Nations, the people who were first here on this territory, they were very welcoming to these settlers and tried to help them survive a difficult winter. So although the exact facts and dates of the Thanksgiving tradition aren't exactly clear, it's not really certain exactly when this tradition happened, but the idea is that there was a meal that was shared between the settlers, who were the pilgrims. They were kind of coming to the United States, coming to this new territory in the Americas to practice their religious traditions. And they were supported by the native peoples, the Native Americans who already lived here, and given food so that they could survive because they didn't have the skills to handle this kind of difficult climate because it's very cold in the fall. So this is kind of the first Thanksgiving, was a meal where people come together to share a meal and be thankful for all of the bounty, all of the food that the earth provided. So there's kind of like a melding of the religious tradition of these pilgrims, the spiritual traditions of the Native Americans, and kind of giving thanks for people coming together. Obviously, if you know anything about the history of the United States, the Native Americans were not treated well by later governments in the United States, and it's a really sad part of the American history. Also, I know a lot of countries have the same kind of tragic history, but we still like to celebrate Thanksgiving because of this whole idea of giving thanks and being thankful for each other. And so the reason I really like Thanksgiving in the United States is that, first of all, you guys may or may not know, I'm a vegetarian, so I don't even eat turkey. Like, I don't even really eat a lot of the foods that are part of Thanksgiving, but it's kind of like a moment to be still because the United States is very go, go, go. But when we come together in the United States for Thanksgiving, you usually spend it with your family or your close friends. And you take, it traditionally has been a whole weekend, usually from like mid-Wednesday afternoon until Sunday after Thanksgiving. That's when you are kind of spending time with your friends and family. Since in the last kind of decade or two, now there's Black Friday and people go crazy buying things for upcoming Christmas holiday, but there's still that kind of ability to just rest and just kind of be reflective. So I asked you guys at the beginning what holiday tradition truly matters to you. And for me, the holiday tradition of Thanksgiving is being with people you care about and being grateful or being thankful. If you guys are interested in learning more about the vocabulary about being thankful, I have a video from this time last year on, I think it's called Beyond Thank You, How to Show Appreciation and Express Gratitude in English. And I go into a lot of detail on all of the language related to Thanksgiving. It's actually getting a lot of traffic on my website right now because people are looking for this language. But I definitely encourage you to go back to that older video. It's from last November, and I will include a link below the video so that you can watch it, easily once we finish the live replay or the live recording. But anyway, the whole point of the reason I like the tradition of being grateful is that a lot of times when we are kind of goal oriented, which we've talked about in other episodes, or we're moving forward and seeking things in our lives, we don't really take time to appreciate all of the good things that are in our lives. Like, this is really silly, but I appreciate things like my beautiful little mug from North Carolina, or I appreciate all of you who are showing up live to this video, taking time to join me for this conversation. I appreciate that my life has happened in a way I can teach online. But sometimes when you're doing the work, or you're, dealing with some sort of financial issue, or you have some issue in your relationship, or, just something's not going the way you want, we often forget to be thankful and to start appreciating the things that we have in our lives. So Thanksgiving is a tradition of gratitude, which means that usually, not every family, but a lot of families, I'm kind of the one who makes my family do this, but you come together and you share a meal, and usually there's a moment where everyone goes around, I'm trying to show you visually, in a circle, and they share what they're grateful for. And it can be something like, I'm grateful for this delicious meal, I'm grateful for the opportunity to relax with you, I'm grateful for the opportunity to just be here today. It can be something simple. I'm grateful for the beautiful sunlight today. Or it can be really big things. Maybe you had a new kid, or you got married, or you got a new job, or you finished your university program. So it can be big things and small things. And so the reason this is my favorite holiday tradition, and it truly matters to me because I think reflection is really important. I think we can't always be seeking outward. We have to sometimes be looking inward in order to appreciate how wonderful life can be, even in the middle of a lot of difficulty. So for me, Thanksgiving has always been really important. And when I lived in California, and also when I lived in South America, I couldn't spend Thanksgiving with my family because there's just no way to fly. It was much too expensive. So even on those type of days when you're far from home, which some of you may be living far from your family, you also might find some time to spend time with friends on that particular day. In the United States, when you spend time with your friends, even friends in their families instead of your family, we call it an orphan Thanksgiving because you can't be with your family right then. So I've done that before where I was invited to my friend's Thanksgiving, or all of us that lived far from home had our own Thanksgiving meal. And when I lived in South America, we had Thanksgiving as a group. The Americans got together and invited our friends to join us because it's that kind of coming together and appreciating each other and just taking the time to do something special. So that's what's so important about Thanksgiving and why the Thanksgiving holiday tradition of being thankful matters to me. Other holiday traditions, Thanksgiving doesn't really necessarily have any other things that you do besides food. The Thanksgiving tradition is mostly about giving thanks, right? Being thankful, being grateful, appreciative. And you can check out all that language in the other video. And it's also about just eating together. So having a special meal. So in general, people eat turkey, right? Which is a poultry type of meat. And we have stuffing, which is kind of bread that goes inside the turkey so that it cooks with the juices. Obviously, there's vegetarian versions not cooked inside the turkey. A lot of times people eat cornbread because corn is a common harvest item here in the US. A lot of times there's certain types of vegetables like green beans. It depends. Brussels sprouts. People have their own family traditions for foods. We usually make Brussels sprouts and green beans. Potatoes, because potatoes are a harvest food. Cranberries, because cranberries come from this region. So there's all kinds of foods that people eat. But my absolute favorite is pumpkin pie. I love pumpkin pie. I make my own pumpkin pie from scratch, which means I make the crust, I make the filling. Sometimes I roast the pumpkin. And so it's like I make the entire thing from scratch, which means nothing that's purchased, except I don't milk the cows to get them to get the cream. But that's really important to me because I love pumpkin pie, and I only really eat it around Thanksgiving, like usually on Thanksgiving, and sometimes you'll find it, in a restaurant around Thanksgiving. So it's kind of like a tradition that you only eat this food once a year, so you get really excited to eat it. And for Thanksgiving, there isn't any music or dance or anything that's part of Thanksgiving. A lot of people watch football, they play football, they might go outside if the weather's a little bit warmer. It depends on the year. So there's not as many traditions around Thanksgiving besides food and gratitude. Each family may have their own things that they do together, and that's why you may have a holiday tradition that's just for your family, that's not necessarily shared by other people. So I'm going to check in with you guys in the chat. I see you chatting away there, but let me know if you have any questions about Thanksgiving, and then we can talk about other holidays. But I want you to think, if you have a favorite holiday. Some of you said like you like Christmas because of the holiday spirit. So what are the traditions that help you feel that holiday spirit? Because that's something that I think is really cool. So thank you guys so much for joining me for this live lesson. We had a great conversation about holiday traditions. If you have a chance to reflect on what holiday traditions truly matter to you, please be sure to leave a comment after the video. I know we didn't talk too much about other different cultural traditions, but I would always love to engage in a conversation about what truly matters to you, about the holiday traditions that are important, because I believe in cultural exchange. I believe in exchanging different cultures with you guys. And so I'm really excited to be able to continue the conversation. That also reminds me, I meant to say this earlier because this is the end. But if you guys have topics you're interested in knowing more about, I have some interesting ideas for the next season of Conversations with Kim that may go like into different topics that are interesting to you, topics you don't feel like your English is super strong about. So I'll be posting a video where I ask you guys for feedback, but if you think of topics or questions that you're not entirely sure how to ask, I really do encourage you to leave a comment and let me know the other questions you have answered. I also you can submit your questions here. This is just a form where you can submit all your questions at englishwithkim.com/ask, and you can ask those questions there, or leave a comment on YouTube if you don't feel shy. So that's it. Thank you guys so much for your participation, for your enthusiasm, for being excited about these live video lessons. We'll see what happens in the next couple of weeks, and we'll see what happens in 2018. More opportunities. So once again, I am Kim from englishwithkim.com. I am your guide to the essential conversation skills you need to sound more natural in English. As always, if you like the video, please give it a thumbs up and be sure to share it with a friend. It really helps more people find this YouTube channel, and the more people who find the channel and participate, the better the chances are I could do more of these live videos in the future. I truly appreciate your open-mindedness, your enthusiasm, your participation, and your excitement. It has been such a pleasure over this first season of Conversations with Kim, and we'll see what happens in season 2. Thanks once again, guys. Goodbye.